Blessed to be a part of your day on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning. Joining us now, Karen Cataline, talk show host, author, to talk a little bit about the media's role in shaping the possibility of impeachment, more angst over another government shutdown, and what about the possibility of a national emergency? Karen, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's great to be with you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Well, we take a look at the media today. Do they report or do they indoctrinate?
Interview's over. They indoctrinate. Anybody who doesn't see that now, and unfortunately there are some who don't, are not getting the full story. They aren't even hiding it anymore. That's what's so interesting. Remember, maybe even a couple of decades ago, they tried to feign this notion that they were trying to be objective. I mean, anybody who believes that is simply not watching. They ignore pieces of information that just don't comport with their agenda.
Well, and, we've seen this in the past, whether it was at UVA with the false rape allegations, the Duke lacrosse case, which I can't believe we all seem so antiquated or showing our age to even be talking about that, and the latest with the Covington Catholic boys.
Yes. And in 1 week, they had two huge, most people would consider it a scandal, but these guys, they just keep moving on. And what I think is most amazing is their willful disregard for the actual story that was revealed. Any kind of objective, honest news person would say, oh, we have new information, let's report it. But these young whippersnappers that have replaced, we had left-leaning news reporters before, but they had a sense of what their job was. Today, these very young, fresh out of journalism school, leftist journalism schools, see their job as, quote, changing the world. Not sure who said that first, but they really see themselves as, I hate to use the leftist term, change agents. So they have justified for themselves that this is perfectly legitimate to pick and choose what they report. There's a whole story out there that none of the media, the biased media, is reporting. I'm going all over the place, I'm sorry, because there's so much to talk about in this. It's ridiculous. But to go back to the two stories, the two stories were, one was the Covington kids, who now it is quite clear that they were the victims, not only of being harassed while waiting for a bus, but bigoted smears thrown at them by people that, get a pass by the leftist agenda. If you are the right color, if you're the right group, you get a pass, and nobody calls you out on your outrageous bigotry. And the other one was Donald Trump being accused of something that was just totally forgive me, I have it right here, the BuzzFeed story, in which every commentator tried to say that they got him now. I got Trump now. The BuzzFeed story claiming that Trump directed his smarmy lawyer Cohen to lie. That was a lie. So,
right. So, but when we take a look at the impact it's having, you go to an example I saw the other day. A young lady who used to write for Politico, now she's the darling of MSNBC, Casey Hunt, KCDC. She just overly calls the president deranged, acting like a child. I mean, she's maybe 30 at best. And you're thinking, my goodness gracious, this is the best and the brightest, inserting opinion. There used to be, and it used to happen in newsrooms and radio and TV, you'd have your opinion guys and you'd have your news guys, and never would the two meet. Now we have agenda-driven mainstream media journalism that is hitting the folks that spend more time on Fortnite and Facebook than they do reading the real history of the United States of America. They lack the
They know
critical thinking.
nothing.
They lack the critical thinking skills
Yeah.
to make its decisions. So, Karen, what's the overall impact on our society? We have more libs coming up?
Well, we're headed for lots and lots of turmoil because we still have a good many people, although we're aging, who remember what America was like when people held themselves personally accountable. I'm beginning to wonder, this could be a little overly sweeping, and it could be the subject of my next op-ed, that the left has been trying to create an alternative reality. I know that seems huge, but I mean, I think it is. When you combine all the ways in which the left has demonized decency and elevated criminality, in every area of our lives, they're trying to redefine Western culture to their liking. And in order to do that, they basically turn logic and common sense upside down. I attended a town hall meeting over the weekend. It was actually in my latest op-ed or blog post. And I was stunned. This was a newly elected Democrat in the Colorado State Legislature. And the great majority of supporters of this Democrat, it was stunning to me how many things they just took as a given. They didn't question them anymore. And so in the long way around the barn answer to your question, I fear that the reason the media does this so vociferously is because it works so well. When you can dumb down the public and tell them what to think instead of how to think, then we've got a problem on our hands. If it didn't work so well, they wouldn't be doing it. So we have a big job ahead, but I think there are people who are standing up. We have to stand up as loudly as we possibly can, stand up loudly, and speak up loudly about what is basic common sense. If I may, I would love, Kevin, to just tell you what's coming down the pike in Colorado, because you're not all that far away. I lived in New York, I lived in LA, but I was born and raised in Colorado, and I finally came back. Colorado is like the petri dish for leftist ideas now because it was completely taken over by Democrats in the last midterm election. And they are actually pushing something, I don't know if you've heard about it, called supervised injection sites. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't, but we're anxious to hear about Colorado since we heard a couple of rich libs came in, flipped the state to blue, yes. And obviously you've got the pro-marijuana there as well.
Well, this is outrageous, and yes, there's an excellent book which is now a little outdated now, but this is what they did very intentionally to take over the state of Colorado. They've been doing it since 2002. The book is called The Blueprint. You can still buy it. And, of course, it's outdated because one of the billionaires that came into Colorado is now governor of the state. His name is Jared Polis. So they accomplished it. They play the long game. And so it is very, very important because they've moved on to states like Texas and Oklahoma and Idaho. Although that, I think they're going to wait. But this is how they do it. So supervised injection sites, which is a preposterous and dangerous idea, is patterned after something in Vancouver where they actually, believe it or not, I'm not lying to you, create what they call safe spaces where people can come in and defy federal law and inject heroin, methamphetamine, or cocaine into their bodies, and people will be standing by with Narcan, excuse me, so that they don't overdose. They count this as saving lives, and they introduce it as a trial program, as a means of saving lives. But now with the pushback in Colorado, it's coming out that George Soros and the so-called Open Society Foundation funds these all over the world. They are now opening their 7th safe injection site in Vancouver. And what used to be a beautiful city, the area surrounding Vancouver is now, the buildings are boarded up. They're owned and run by drug gangs. There are people, homeless people that harass people down the street, walking down the street. You can't walk down the street. It destroys the area, destroys the community, and destroys businesses, let alone the fact that it enables drug addicts. And
well, how do they define federal law?
Well, I'm using that term as it is federal law that you can't use heroin, shoot up drugs in public without being arrested. It's
Right.
actually a federal law that those are illegal drugs. Now, as a libertarian, I wasn't too upset about the legalization of marijuana. However, the downside that I knew was going to happen, and now I've rethought that quite a lot, I think it is a terrible idea, is that the government becomes the biggest drug pusher. And they claim that they're going to legalize marijuana, which they may try to do federally if they get enough votes, because they want to take it out of the hands of the black market. But they tax it so high and so much because the government is the greediest of all, that now in Colorado we have a black market and a legalized marijuana market, and people are driving high. It's really, really bad for the state that I love, that I grew up in, and I would suggest that people in Wyoming, another state that I love a lot, Wyoming and Idaho and other places, watch Colorado and don't do what's being done here. Fight it with every fiber of your being, because
Sure.
what looks benign today is a part of the plan tomorrow.
Well, what's the? And by the way, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Karen Cataline joining us here to talk about a variety of conservative issues. But where's the state and the local law enforcement in all this?
Well, it hasn't been legalized yet. What telegraphed to everyone that they were serious about this is that the Denver City Council actually voted 11-1 for so-called safe ingestion sites, which is such a preposterous title. So now it has to go to the Colorado legislature, which is completely run by Democrats and a Democrat governor. There is a lot of pushback going on in Colorado about these so-called safe injection sites. So we don't know what's going to happen, but what outer lying cities don't understand is that if the legislature approves it, then you can have one in every city in Colorado. This is deadly dangerous. And then you have to ask yourself, which we don't have time, and people can speculate, as to why a George Soros would be so committed to creating places where people can get high and shoot up. What brings to mind are the opium dens in China.
Right.
That's what's happening here.
Karen, if
Ugly and awful.
If people want more information about you and your causes, what can they do?
Well, they can go to KarenCataline.com. I would love to connect with you on Twitter. If you disagree, please let me know. I do a show called Spouting Off today at 2, as a matter of fact, Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's an internet radio talk show, but I would love to connect with people. And I guess we evolved from one topic to another, but I'm really exorcised, if that's the right word. I'm really jumping up and down about this issue because it ushers in so many other ugly, nasty things that the left is pushing. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it very, very much.
All right, Karen, take care, and we'll have you back.
My pleasure. Take care, too.
All right. Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, that's what we call a quick break. Kevin Miller in the morning. Don't forget Dave Ramsey right after Glenn Beck. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We've been getting a lot of attention for our efforts to champion the repeal of the grocery tax. And the more that we continue to raise awareness, to urge our legislators to keep your campaign promise, More and more people are saying, holy Roger Stone, Kevin Miller, we don't have any money. I don't know how that works. Maybe you run a business. Maybe you run a small business, a big business. I don't get how that works. I don't get how all of a sudden, through the accounting practices of the state of Idaho, where more people are moving in than moving out, where we have so many people moving in that we can't build enough affordable homes. It's a good problem to have, where the traffic has actually become an issue, whether it's State Street, whether it's the connector, wherever you're going, except if you're going to Mountain Home. I don't understand how we can have a $60 million shortfall. And so throughout the time here in the morning, certain people will Facebook message me or email me and give me some thoughts. And people are very concerned about our efforts to repeal the grocery tax. They say, Kevin Miller, we can't afford it. In fact, as I said, with our podcast that'll be released, I think, in a couple weeks, with Tommy Ahlquist, Inspire Excellence, we talked to House Majority Leader Mike Moyle and House Minority Leader Matt Erpelding. And we said, hey, you going to repeal the grocery tax? Speaker Moyle said, no. Money's too difficult. And I never want to put words into politicians' mouth, and Representative Erpelding said the same thing. No, Medicaid expansion, can't pay for it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, there's going to be a big lawsuit. The Idaho Supreme Court is going to find out whether or not that goes forward. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, when are we ever going to learn from the politicians, hey, you made a promise? And who didn't see this shortfall? Remember, we had the most expensive political campaign that went on for 2 years. The run for governor, the run for legislature, everything else. And yet we sit back and we think to ourselves, hey, we're finally going to get a repeal of the grocery tax. And then all of a sudden we get somebody coming in that that had Governor Otter, that had Mrs. Otter behind it. Hey, let's get Medicaid expansion because we're owed money. Look, if it's something is too good to be true, we know it is not true. And the idea that we're going to get free money from Washington. Okay, so for all the people that ran the ads from Medicaid expansion, that we're going to get $40 million from Washington, why in the world is the state of Idaho, you talk to any elected official saying we can't afford to repeal the grocery tax because we can't afford Medicaid expansion? We have a $60 million shortfall. In fact, we have people saying that if the repeal happens, you're going to look at the state looking to cut programs like defunding indigent care services, prison care, hospital subsidies, state revenue sharing, and others. How in the world can we effectively manage the state when we're threatening to cut real-life programs when the state is doing well, when we're not in a recession, and fund the rainy day fund and everything else? Yet, as we said before, the state can afford to buy the glorious HP campus and spend millions of additional dollars to fix it up. Now, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I say the grocery tax has to be repealed. I say we hire people. And look, you got a lot of smart people, whether they work as insurance agents, whether they're lawyers, doctors, ranchers, farmers, whomever. Got a lot of smart people in the state legislature. They choose to do this job. They spend their time, their efforts, their money to represent us. What I'm saying is, please represent us and do your job and, again, fix it. Well, there's the funding of education. I don't remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember hearing these excuses during the campaign season. I just heard promises. I just heard, hey, we're going to get it done. It's going to be the best ever, and we're going to have a good time. Well, and then we have the legislative session, and I thought that if people were really serious about repealing the grocery tax, that would have been item number one. Now, maybe you differ. Maybe you say, look, Kevin Miller, we can't afford to do this. We can't afford to repeal the grocery tax. We've got Medicaid expansion. That's an unfunded mandate, although the proponent said that we would get free money from Washington, which never happens. We've got the state building and expanding. We still can't fund education adequately. Then, with all due respect, the people that ran for office, why did all of you say we support the repeal of the grocery tax. That's what I don't get. And I've had people reach out to me on Facebook and email and social media and say, look, this is wrong. People in the legislature, they choose to be there. They're smarter than me. Why haven't they figured that out yet? And when will the bomb drop? Remember, we had the lieutenant governor on. She said, look, Kevin Miller, it's going to happen. The governor said it will. So whom do you believe? KIDO Talk Radio Time, 829, 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
7-0 Gabbard.
And here we go. Kevin Miller in the morning here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Other top news of the day, as you heard on Fox News, right here on your home for Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley, Roger Stone getting ready to be, I guess, arraigned today on the charges. They're going to draw it up. Stone says, look, I'm not pleading against the president. I'm not going to do this. But it shows you, again, how the media continues to pick winners and losers. And, this is a point that we talk about again and again and again, the idea of Stone going to jail for doing what? Having nothing to do with the Russian collusion charges. It proves if they want to get you, they're going to get you.
We just went through a government shutdown that was entirely on him. That was a huge cost for America. And they assume that that will never happen again. Okay, now we'll go back to a normal president. We're never going back to a normal president.
The president proposed a good faith effort, in a good faith compromise. This was an opportunity to bring the Democrats to the table. They refused to negotiate. Now that we're back on where we're able to reopen the government for the next 3 weeks, this is going to put pressure on these conferees.
That if Congress doesn't do their job, then the president will be forced to make up for all of their shortcomings.
I think that there are people there that want a barrier, recognize a barrier, but I don't know if there's enough to get there. I'm leaning back, Sandra, back to the president probably is going to have to declare that it's an active drug trafficking corridor pursuant to Title 10 of the U.S. Code. And if so, he's going to have access to billions of dollars to build the wall, some roads, and infrastructure, I think.
Well, there we have it. So a national emergency perhaps is on the way. By the way, the State of the Union is back on. We have reports that the president will be there February 5th speaking to Congress about what needs to be done. Now, whether or not he threatens another government shutdown, whether or not he declares a national emergency, and you have people saying, look, Kevin Miller, what's to stop somebody who happens to be a lib, who happens to be a gun grabber, declaring a national emergency and taking away our guns if President Trump is allowed to get away with declaring a national emergency? Well, I guess your definition of what a national emergency is, right? Is a national emergency all the heroin coming into the country? Is a national emergency all the criminals that continue to harm and persecute Americans? That sounds like a national emergency to me. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News. And out to John Decker, the White House. Yes, actually at the White House. From Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning to you, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I am just amazed at the number of appearances that Cliff Sims has made. Colbert, The View, Good Morning America, Morning Joe. Quite a lot for a former aide.
That's right. No, it is. It's all in promotion of a book that he's put out. His book that covers his time working in the Trump White House, also covers a bit of time working in the Trump campaign. And we're hearing that the Trump campaign is trying to stop Mr. Sims from doing these interviews, looking to file a lawsuit against him, trying to make certain that that NDA, the non-disclosure agreement that he signed, is enforced. There's a lot of problems, however, in terms of enforcing a non-disclosure agreement. Generally, a well-written NDA is rarely voided by a judge. The problem, though, is that the president will have in enforcing this NDA that Mr. Sims presumably signed while working at the White House is that White House employees don't work for President Trump. They work for the USA, and the U.S. is the beneficiary of the non-disclosure agreement, and as a result, the U.S. would be responsible for enforcing the NDA, not the Trump campaign. And the First Amendment, in addition to that, generally protects public employees against government restrictions on free speech. So that's the reason why Mr. Sims wrote his book and had no problem with it being published, and the reason why Omaroso wrote her book and had no problem with getting that book published either.
Always appreciate your legal insight, John Decker. I just did you ever have a chance to meet with Mr. Sims? I know of him from his past in Alabama.
No, in actuality, I did not. Never really dealt with him at all. There are other people that I deal with and have dealt with at the White House on a regular basis, but Mr. Sims is not one of them. That being said, that's not that unusual. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. The former staff secretary who was let go here at the White House, Rob Porter, saw him a lot, but never really dealt with him, in terms of providing any type of information to Fox News on or off the record. So that's not that unusual. But he clearly was involved in a lot of meetings in which the president attended and other high-level aides to the president, and that's the reason why he is getting so much time doing these television interviews right now.
And competing with Governor Christie,
who has his own book coming out or just out right now. You're right, Governor Christie, with settling some scores to a certain extent, right, with his book in which he goes after the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, saying some unflattering things about him. I wonder to a certain extent, when do publishing companies say, you know what, we've reached our limit on Trump tell-all books? But we're not there yet. I don't know what kind of advance Mr. Sims got. Hopefully it was a good one because, in certain quarters he's going to be persona non grata, certainly in Republican quarters, but hopefully he got a good advance, and that's not an issue for him.
Well, one of the big issues is, will there be another government shutdown? How goes the negotiations?
Well, I can't tell you anything yet because the first round of negotiations takes place tomorrow. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. If there's any progress towards coming up with a border security deal. I know that the president would certainly like to see that happen and also wants to see money for a border wall with Mexico happen rather than having to declare a national emergency. He said that publicly. He's tweeted about that publicly. So that is something that we'll be following over the course of the next 3 weeks or so.
And, of course, the State of the Union is back on.
The State of the Union address coming a week from tonight, February the 5th. I'll be there reporting from the House chamber, inside the House chamber, for the State of the Union for Fox. And, Kevin, this is going to be my 24th State of the Union address that I will attend. And I always look forward to it, Kevin. It's always so exciting for me. Believe me, it's my Super Bowl. I just love that day. I really look forward to it, and now it's going to happen in just 7 days.
John Decker, always a privilege to have you on. Have a great day, sir.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day. I'll talk to you real soon.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. There we have it, John Decker. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're hearing KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM in the Treasure Valley. Let's go to Caldwell, and Scott joins us now with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, sir. Hey, have you heard of Ted Cruz El Chapo Act?
No.
It's on Breitbart. It's on Fox. There are a number of different outlets that explain it. But essentially, Ted Cruz is pushing a proposal to help Mexico pay for that wall via the drug lords. And apparently the U.S. has access to $14 billion worth of El Chapo money that he wants to use as the down payment to get this thing started. And in an interview that he did, he said, actually, if we go after the funds of people like El Chapo, we will be able to get all the funding that we need without asking the taxpayers for a dime. And so I called Ted Cruz's office and asked him about this. And he's just trying like crazy to get people to listen to his idea. But with all this other hubbub going on, he's having a hard time getting people to the table to even listen to his proposal. But yeah, he's got the El Chapo Act that he's trying to push into law.
Well, God bless Senator Cruz. We'll look into that.
Thank you. Appreciate you very much. You and Ray Bowl. Thank you.
All right. Scott, thank you. Tea Party Bob joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Have you ever noticed that when we have severe, cold spells like we have now in the Midwest and the East Coast, you never hear the lefty politicians talking about climate change? It's like they all go underground until the thaw comes in the springtime.
They go to ground.
You know, I've been listening to you beating the marijuana war drum this morning like an Indian on the warpath. I have agreed with you that marijuana can be harmful and can be a gateway drug for many, especially young people, as I have personal experience with the loss of a nephew because of his addiction. And that started with marijuana. I don't believe the federal government should have the power to restrict the use throughout the country because they decide for whatever reason it's dangerous. And as I have said many times on this show, I believe that it has been proven cannabis and CBD oil have many medicinal uses, and it is being used by many physicians throughout the country, and for this reason should be legal with a prescription. Individual states should have the right to decide what is and is not legal within their borders, and the Supremacy Clause should have no standing to override the state's right to make that decision. If Idaho is going to impose jail terms for the illegal possession and sale of marijuana, I propose that the state solve the overcrowded prison population problem first and make sure we have the facilities to house all the people that are going to be arrested for the use and possession of marijuana. We should also require anyone convicted of this crime to go through courses that teach them the dangers of continuous use of this substance to prevent recidivism. We do not need, we don't need to outlaw things like this, but we need to educate our children.
Well, they're already against the law.
Can I finish?
It's not a monologue here. I just wanted to say it's already against the law. And then if I don't jump in, you're going to have people accusing you of reading.
I understand it's against the law. And if I'm reading from stuff that I've researched and done some work on. We need to institute programs in our schools that make kids aware of problems associated with the marijuana, and it should begin in grammar school and continue through their education. If we're going to have a state that forbids the use of a substance like marijuana, we have a responsibility to educate the citizens, to provide proper places to house those who violate the laws. There are far more dangerous problems that will kill people and cause them hardships. And we have all kinds of programs for obesity and diabetes awareness, alcohol problems, and smoking in general. All of these things can kill us. But if we're going to tell people in our state not to do something, we need to educate them as to why. And I think what you do on this program is wonderful. But as far as the federal government, they have no business telling us what we can and can't do in our state unless it's federally mandated. And I don't see where they have any reason to come into any state and tell us what we can and cannot do. That's why we have state government. That's why we have legislation.
And currently you have the state of Idaho obeying federal law and not legalizing marijuana.
And what does Idaho do when they don't want to obey federal law?
And by the way, what you're advocating is we teach kids to say no to drugs, but then we open their access to the currently illegal drugs.
Nobody said that. I said the states make their own decisions, but you need to educate the children and the people of Idaho or any other state as to the dangers of these drugs. Don't try to twist my words, my friend.
I see.
I love what you do, and I think you're doing a great job, and continue.
Well, we can agree to disagree. That's what friends are for.
I agree, but let's solve the problems that we have with our prisons and with our education before
but you see, there's
and beat this to death.
Well, but people are already on me about beating to death the repeal of the grocery tax because, we don't have any money here and there. And look, I'm not a bright person, but I know that if everybody on the campaign trail made a promise, hey, we're going to repeal the grocery tax, and once they got elected, just kidding, everybody, see you next re-election cycle. That sets a bad precedent. Are you buying this, that we're on the edge of economic brinkmanship here, collapse?
No, Kevin, because if Congressman Labrador was going to cut our taxes by over $500 million, you know there's money in the budget that could be taken out to solve this little problem that we have for $79 million. They don't want to do it. They know where the money is. They don't want to find it. This has been a problem in the Idaho legislature for eons. It never stops. They only do what they want to do. And when the rhinos are in control like they are now, they're not going to give you a break on a grocery tax. And the problem is it hurts the lowest end of the economic scale. It hurts all those people at the lower end. And they don't care about them. It doesn't matter to them. They'll make all the promises in the world before the election. After the election, you won't hear boo from these people about what they promised you.
And we're seeing that now. Tea Party Bob, publisher of the Gem State Patriot, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good day.
You too. Pro-Life joins us now on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Good morning. You know, we do have an emergency on the southern border. And if Trump declares a national emergency, he can do that according to the Emergency Powers Act of 1976. That act has been used 42 times since 1976.
Well, maybe he'll do that during the State of the Union. Maybe he's going to go into Nancy's house and smack her upside the head.
That'd be very good. But anyway, then...
Not that we would ever advocate for that. We say that for entertainment purposes only.
Right. But anyway, then all of the so-called constitutional experts, they say then the courts will shut that emergency powers of the president down. Now, they're not really constitutional experts, because what should happen if a president does something like that and a court tries to shut down the president, Congress should impeach that judge, and the Congress should decide whether the president has the power to do that. If he doesn't, and he doesn't obey them, then they would impeach him. And President Trump might as well right now go that route and see just what's going to happen, because that's the constitutional provision when an executive gets out of control is impeachment. It's not investigation by the Justice Department. That's totally unconstitutional. And so we're just really stumbling around. We don't understand the word jurisdiction. There's jurisdiction in all of our constitutional government, and that's what the Founding Fathers set up, and we don't understand that, so we let anybody say anything and do anything, and it's caused us to lose our constitutional government. We're not a constitutional republic anymore. We're just a mishmash democracy, messing around, power plays by idiot people. And the real problem is that legislators, whether it's the federal legislature or the state, they don't want to take responsibility.
Well,
for
let's get back to the legislature. Are you in favor of repealing the grocery tax?
Absolutely.
Well, why can't they make that happen?
Because they don't want to. And even if they were going to do it this time, they would make it effective beginning on January 1st.
Then why did they promise during the campaign that they would do it?
Well, because they want to get elected, and they think the people want to hear that, so they say that. And, Governor Otter said that he would veto a sales tax repeal on food, and he would have. And Brad Little says, well, I want to repeal the sales tax on food. They just are all talk. It doesn't matter which one of them it is. And Governor Otter's responsible for this big dilemma we have right now, because he and his wife, he went out there promoting Proposition 2 and put all of that financial burden on the government to fill the gap with more socialized medicine.
Well, I don't really think that it mattered. I mean, he was on the commercials, but do you think really it made a difference?
Sure, it makes a big difference. People believe him. I don't know why
I was talking to Wayne Hoffman the other day, and I said, how can you be reddest of the red if you're endorsing the expansion of Medicaid? He goes, I'm not going to rip it on Governor Otter. I go, it's not a rip, it's a statement of fact.
Yeah, it is. It's an actual statement of fact.
Yeah.
And then Governor Little, he didn't say, listen, if I'll veto anything having to do with expansion of Medicaid and the gap thing. He didn't say that. He said, if the people vote for it, I'll implement it. So he was playing in the middle. He doesn't want to take a position.
Well,
that's not good.
Careful what you wish for.
Well, anyway, marijuana's bad for you.
Thank you, Pro-Life.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Just say no to drugs. That's the motto of the Kevin Miller Show. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.